sector-specific BEE codes will now comply with the amended BEE codes. Joining us to discuss this rather complicated issue is Marsha Arnold from Grant Thornton Verification Services. Marsha, you really got to help us here, because when we look at things in the Government Gazette as just members of the public, it all looks terribly confusing, as we were saying earlier with Sasha. When you make an investment, there's yes, no, and too tough to call over there. And there has been a change to the gazetted regulations for broad-based black economic empowerment. There are two major issues that jumped out.
Two major issues, Alec, is basically they have reduced the number of elements upon which a company now gets rated from 7 to 5. They've also increased the thresholds of which companies, when they cross over from a small exempt enterprise, the EME, to a medium enterprise, your QSE, and to your larger enterprises. One of the major impacts, however, is the way they have changed how one gets, your BE level gets recognized. For example, currently, if you are a level 4, you need to earn 65 to 75 points. Under the amended codes, that is increased to 80 to 90 points. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult for companies to maintain their current BEE status.
If you're a small business, I know Grant Thornton deal a lot with entrepreneurial operations. Where do you start having to worry about being BEE compliant?
Well, up until the amended codes has lifted the ceiling of EMEs from 5 million to 10 million. So if your turnover is under 10 million and you are 100% black owned, you automatically qualify as a level 1 BEE contributor. If you're more than 51% black owned, you're level 2. And if you are under 51% black owned, which is your white owned enterprise, you're level 4. So that it's actually favored the smaller business.
So why are those relevant? Why is level 1, 2, 4, whatever number you get to?
When you are supplying a company that is being measured, they use your BEE certificate and your level in order to earn their procurement points. So for example, if you are a level 4, for every rand they spend with you, they can claim a rand towards their BEE target. If you are a level 7, for example, only 80% of what you spend with them. Level 1 is 135%.
So you get an incentive then if you're 100% black.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I also understand that you've also there's been an extension rather to the application of these amendments.
Correct.
Is this a good thing?
Absolutely. The codes, the amended codes were meant to come into effect on the 10th of October 2014. On the 18th of March, Dr. Rob Davies from the DTI issued a gazette extending that to the 30th of April 2015. This gives companies another 6.5 months in order to get their ducks in a row, in inverted commas, in order to become more compliant. Another big advantage of the extension of the transitional period, as they call it, is that it gives the sector codes more time in which to align with the codes of good practice. We currently have 9 sectors which have their own sector codes, and if you fall into that sector, you get measured against those codes. And those sector codes need to be aligned with the amended codes.
So is it likely that, for instance, the transport sector, take that as an argument, that they might have a different code of practice to the overall one that the DTI is now provided?
But you must remember, Alec, at the moment, wherever there is something that's not specifically stated in a sector charter, it falls back onto the codes of good practice. Once the codes of good practice 2007 fall away, what does it fall back on? There's nothing to fall back on, so it has to be aligned. The key issue is the different levels. Currently all your sector codes are talking to a level 4 being between 65 and 75. It's always been uniform, so that needs to change. The fact that it's now dropped to 5 elements instead of 7 elements, the sectors, I would imagine, need to align with that as well. But they need time to do that, and the industry needs to be able, those 60 days of when it lies in draft, to be able to comment and give input.
This getting your ducks in a row for a company which might be on the extreme end, white-owned perhaps, what does this entail for them? How do they change things or correct them?
Well, you have various options. I mean, it is a strategic decision that you need to make. In the past, I think where the biggest differences come in, or one of the big differences with the amended codes, is that when you fell into the QSE bracket, your medium enterprise, which used to be between 5 and 35, which is now 10 and 50, you could elect to be rated on 4 out of the 7 elements. So you could effectively avoid being measured under ownership. With the implementation of the new codes, ownership is now a compulsory element. And if you do not comply and reach the 40% sub-minimum on the net value aspect of ownership, you automatically get discounted by a level. So it becomes very important to your white-owned businesses to ensure that if they want to compete effectively in the South African market, to maintain a competitive advantage, they need to relook at their ownership structure.
Is this a costly exercise to relook the ownership structure?
Well, it depends. It depends how you're going to do it. There are various ways you can do it. It can be an individual that you are selling shares to. It can be an employment ownership scheme, for example. There are various ways of doing it. Where there becomes an issue with the new codes is that in the past, a lot of these shares that were awarded to black, as defined by the codes, shareholders, were funded by dividends. Now, in retrospect, the South African market, a lot of companies aren't paying dividends. So you could land up in a situation 5 years down the line where, in fact, your shares had never been paid for. You weren't entitled to any economic interest or benefit from the company. Now, the new codes are saying that those shares, a certain percentage of the value of the purchase of the shares have to be paid for in order to reach the sub-minimum. And if you don't reach that sub-minimum, that's where you will drop a level.
It's very interesting. If you, as an entrepreneur, because we're supposed to be promoting entrepreneurship, they're the people who create jobs. An entrepreneur gets the 10 million rand turnover, and then they have to sell out, if they want to remain effective, 51% of their business.
No, Alec.
How does it work?
Up to 10 million, you automatically, as a white-owned business, remain a level 4. So nothing has changed from the old codes to the amended codes in that respect. Where it has changed is that your company that is 51% black owned automatically becomes a level 2, and 100% owned becomes a level 1. So those companies have a competitive advantage when competing for tenders or that kind of business.
But when you get to 10 million turnover?
When you get to 10 million turnover, up to 50 million.
Okay. Up
to 50 million. In essence, if you are black owned, up to 50 million, you don't have to go through any process. It's a case of an affidavit and various criteria that have to be met. If you are white owned, less than 51% black owned, and you fall between 10 and 50 million, that's where the challenge comes in. But
that's my point.
Absolutely.
So you start off as an entrepreneur. Once you get to 10 million rand turnover, you may as well sell your business.
No.
Well, why not? Because you're going to be penalized by the BEE codes. If you're a white person like myself.
In essence, the codes are dictating 25 plus 1 vote that you need to relinquish, which is not giving away your business. It's empowering people.
But most entrepreneurs don't like to give anything away. They believe that for a long-term benefit of their business, they should hold 100%. But these codes are saying, if you want to compete, that's what I'm reading from.
You can choose not to meet the ownership criteria. It just means that you will then lose a level. So it means that your other 4 elements have to be right up there. So instead of being a potential level 1 or 2, you would automatically be discounted by 1 level.
Unintended consequences of this are dramatic. I wonder if anybody's really schemed this one through. Because if you're an entrepreneur, a Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, creates Apple in South Africa. While it was small, what would he do? He'd externalize. Anyway, those are the issues that the politicians need to have a look at. Marsha Arnold from Grant Thornton. I hope you noticed the purple Grant Thornton top that she's wearing today. She's from Grant Thornton Verification